This video was made possible by Good Better Best Tuition Services. Please subscribe to our channel for regular updates. Today we are going to be discussing triangles in geometry for grade 8 and 9 maths. Before we begin, I'd like to send a special shout out to Koketso she's from Rustenburg in the Northwest Province. I hope you enjoy the video. This is the one that you've especially requested. Now there are 4 types of triangles that we need to discuss. We need to discuss the scalene triangle, the isosceles triangle, the equilateral triangle, and the right angle triangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make notes on each type of triangle, and I'd like for you to take that down. So a scalene triangle, there are no equal sides, and therefore there are no equal angles. In an isosceles triangle, there are 2 equal sides and therefore 2 equal angles. We say the base angles are equal. With an equilateral triangle, we've got 3 equal sides and therefore 3 angles are equal, and all the angles are equal to 60 degrees in an equilateral triangle. And lastly, a right angle triangle. With a right angle triangle, we've got 1 angle of the triangle equal to 90 degrees. This is known as a right angle. Now the side opposite the right angle is called the hypotenuse. Now I'd like you to pause the video, take down the notes, and then what we are going to do in the next section is we are going to be discussing the angles of a triangle and what they add up to. Okay, so the first thing we need to know is that 3 angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. In other words, if I'm given that this is 100 and that is 50, then what will this angle be? What will that be? 100 plus 50 is 150, but the 3 angles need to add up to 180. So this angle will be 30 degrees. Okay, let's look at the next law. The next law states that the exterior angle of a triangle is equal to the sum of the 2 interior opposite angles. So this angle here will be equal to that angle and that angle. So let's have a look. If that is 50 and that is 60, together they will add up to give you that angle. So this angle will then be 110 degrees. Okay, let's do some examples where we apply what we've learned. So let's look at this example. In our previous videos, we spoke about laws, skills, and strategies. So in this case, the laws that we need is we need to be able to apply the 3 angles of a triangle and know that they add up to 180 degrees. Skills, what additional skills do we need? We need to know how to solve for x, or other words, we need to do equations, and then the strategies is for us to actually solve for x. So we need to get the x alone. So here we can say that 70 plus 60 plus x will be equal to 180 degrees. And what's our reason? 3 angles of a triangle. 70 and 60 add up to 130. And what are we going to do now? We are going to say x is equal to 180 degrees minus 130 degrees. That will give us 50 degrees. So x will be equal to 50 degrees. Let's do another sum. So let's look at triangle ABC. We can see that they've given us angle A, which is 50 degrees, but they've asked us to solve for triangle A, or for angle ACD, which we call x. How are we going to solve for that? You can see that we have an isosceles triangle as indicated by this. This tells us it's an isosceles triangle, which means that this angle must be equal to that angle. Why? Because when we have an isosceles triangle, the base angles will be equal. So in order for us to solve for x, we need to solve for these base angles. So we need to find, let's call this angle y, and let's call that angle y as well, because the two angles are equal. How are we going to write that out? We are going to say 50 plus y is equal to 180 degrees. What's our reason? Our reason is 3 angles of a triangle. Now we are going to solve for y. So 50 plus 2y will be equal to 180 degrees, and 2y will be equal to 180 degrees minus 50 degrees, which will be equal to 130 degrees. And we know what to do. We need to divide by 2 on both sides. So y is equal to 65 degrees. Let's solve for x. So if y is equal to 65 degrees, we can then go ahead and say that x is equal to 180 degrees minus 65 degrees. Why? Because this is an angle on a straight line. Do you see? Do you see that angle? So these two angles will add up to 180 degrees. So that will, x will be equal to 180 minus 65, which will be equal to 115 degrees. Let's look at example 3. Now in this triangle, we need to have a look at our laws, our skills, and our strategies. We need to know that 3 angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. We also need to be able to look for our fuzzy x. We need to know how to solve equations, and the strategies that we will employ is we need to try to solve for the triangle, in other words, find all the angles. And we also need to look for our letters, fuzzy x. We need to find that within our diagram. We covered fuzzy x in parallel lines, so it's one of the previous lessons, so please revise if you aren't sure. Now, if we look at this, we've got an isosceles triangle. And what can you tell me about an isosceles triangle? You know that the base angles of an isosceles triangle are equal. Where are the base angles? What's equal? Let's first look at what's equal. That side, AB, is equal to BC. So the base angles of that triangle will be equal. In other words, this angle will be equal to this angle. Okay, so triangle BAC will be equal to angle ACB. And so BAC will also be equal to 62 degrees. Let's write that down. So we've said that angle BAC is equal to 62 degrees. What we need to do now is we need to find angle ABC. And angle ABC, this angle here, is going to be equal to 182 degrees minus 62 degrees plus 62 degrees. What's our reason? The 3 angles of a triangle. So that will be 180 minus 124, which is equal to 56 degrees. So you'll see we've marked off that angle ABC is equal to 56 degrees. What can we find now? Do you see the C shape? So we see that C or the U shape, if you look here. And what do you know about the C or the U shape? You know that the angles are co-interior, and co-interior angles add up to 180 degrees. So in order for us to find x, we can say that x is equal to 180 minus 56 degrees. So we have x equal to 124 degrees. Why? Because the angles are co-interior and BC is parallel to DC. Now we've got y equal to 62 degrees. Why am I saying that y is equal to 62 degrees? Can you tell me? So if you look at the drawing, you'll see the F shape. It's back to front, but you can see that y will be equal to 62 degrees. And what's our reason? Our reason is corresponding angles with BC being parallel to DE. Let's look at our final example. In this triangle, we have a right angle, which is equal to 90 degrees. We've got an angle equal to 2x plus 30, and we have an angle equal to 3x plus 10. And so they want us to solve for x, and they also want us to solve for y. So which laws do we need to know? We need to know that three angles of a triangle add up to 180. We also need to know that the exterior angle of a triangle is equal to the sum of the two interior opposite angles. Skills, we need to be able to solve for equations and strategies. We are going to have to solve for the triangle first. Why? Because we need to be able to solve for x before we can solve for y, because we cannot have two unknowns in an equation. So now we can go ahead and say that 90 plus 2x plus 30 degrees plus 3x plus 20 degrees is equal to 180 degrees. What's our reason? Our reason is three angles of a triangle. So we can now go ahead and say 5x is equal to 180 degrees minus 90 degrees plus 30 degrees plus 20 degrees. What will that give us? 90 plus 30 is 120 plus 20 is 140. And 180 minus 140 is 40 degrees. So 5x will be equal to 40 degrees. And what will x be? X will be equal to 8 degrees. Now we can go ahead and solve for y, but before we do that, we have to look at this angle and substitute the 8. 3 times 8 is 24, and 24 plus 20 is 44. So we can make a note that this angle is 44 degrees. So y is equal to 180 minus 44 degrees. What's our reason? Angles on a straight line. That will give us 136. Thank you for watching with us. We hope to see you again soon.